bedside.
There's nothing you can do on.
Okay. You had bedside teaching and everything what you could really discuss at it, but if the time is getting more and more narrow, I'm just somehow I'm not sure how it is for the younger medical students, how it will go on, because the time is getting even more lacking. How should you get the medical knowledge, which is the experience, has to be given with presence and teaching in the situation and being with a patient. And I don't want to talk about systemical misuse situations, which is a big part as well, but this problem, how we can solve this, I don't know. But this is a really big thing, also that we can reintegrate the archaic field, which is mainly based on empiric knowledge. And as I have also on searching the truth, actually I maybe had just to keep my mind somehow busy. So I was always having something beside, which was giving me being busy now in traditional Tibetan medicine with the tantric field. I realized I just needed to be grounded, because otherwise my mind would be too far. So it happened on this way of grounding. I did some educations. I did also the osteopathy, phytotherapy, but mostly I realized that in every kind of thing I just trained a different sensation. And coming to the point, what is it about? I think in the end, with like Tibetan medicine, the title of it's only 4 tantras, 4 books. It never changed, more or less. And it's like it was developed in the wisely speaking, not wise, like more from the integrating more the spiritual part. It would have been given by the medicine Buddha. Mm-hmm. And the interesting thing, I just know since 1 year or 2 years, under the tree of music. I really liked that part. The medical knowledge was given under the tree of music to earth. Yeah. I love it because I always was having this thought in my mind, how to make more music, and I don't want to be so much pushed by medicine. And so yeah, so the most thing is on the path that you get the autonomy sooner or later, and this happened to me now. But for integrating knowledge that we can develop our inner self, because this is now the problem. The Western world, I would say like that, is estimating the outer world, the outer renommee, the research about the outer thing, only randomized control in a kind of super level, and a case report which is giving a kind of indication for healing is maybe downgraded. But this would be the evolution, this would be the development, to have a look at this best case about this spontaneous healing. Why? You know, this would be the question what we have to address, or would be to look more on integrative medicine, which is not such an old field now, is combining complementary and conventional medicine, hopefully. But still, it has, from a political point of view, it should have much more ground, because this is the only future where we have to go. But the political part of capitalism problem and that situation and time, and that's maybe like in 5 years, now the medical knowledge is getting twice. Before it was 50 or 100 years. So we have problems. How to do this rational where we have to be trained so much, and then to be really to not. I mean, there was a new syndrome which was shown by the Psychosomatic Congress just the beginning this year. It was called burn-on under medical doctors, not burn-out. So I really have, I'm really hoping that we as a society are able to integrate, because burn-on until dying early, yeah, and colleague maybe did suicide, so have experienced that the colleague had in a car accident after a 24-hour shift. So knowing this, also letting go, and experience that, it's not a superhuman being selection. Although a higher level of motivation to do this, like 6 or 7 years of study being such a hierarchical thing. But the most thing, what as a whole society, what we have to understand is that we have to empower each other, and that I mean, how it is like the integrative medicine or complementary medicine would focus on the individual, would take the experience of the individual very serious, and the main focus, or not main focus, but also a very important part is relationship, like being in that relationship could be a possibility, how it is told in psychosomatic, that someone really can let go in a space of being whole, with maybe that kind of knowledge on kind of Western medical field, which is giving kind of orientation, knowing the lab and knowing, these things are giving always a kind of orientation. And having integrated maybe other fields, giving kind of possibility to hold this space in a different manner, maybe with compassion, or with a kind of way that I make myself in a way overloading, or that I even can give the other one at least self-healing technique or advice. But this is a big amount of what would be great. But the Western or school medicine is giving orientation, and is giving also kind of distress in terms of the hysterical field, and sometimes it's very needed to downgrade these things, and also not overestimate. I mean, there's also a new diagnosis. It's called orthorexia, like how to eat really very good. So, and it's just it's not old, this new diagnosis. So eat so healthy, but this is actually a Zwangsstörung. Yeah, and so we have in these days the fear, what we have discussed downside. We are in the Western hemisphere, in the feeling I have in the dialogue between East and West. Or having had this like 16 years, the feeling is because of our individualization, maybe if you don't have any kind of transcendent path, it doesn't really matter which path, or a path which is touching your heart, or a relationship which is really touching your heart, or being so much in devotion to nature, or having found such a great teacher, like really, if that is not happening to you, and you coincidentally are reading news, and maybe you have also to earn somehow your money, and then you have also to be in a kind of job, and then there is for sure a pressure thing around you. But how can we get this? That we get ground in our inner self.
So Jacques Ferrier do a very good conference 2 days ago about the stress of the technology for the architect, and how technology today constructs at all the rigors for the result of creativity.
Yeah.
I think a part could be a little bit similar with medicine.
Yeah.
How all this high technology come to be independent of the medicine and out of need, in a kind.
Yeah.
He creates his own need, who are perhaps in a little bit dysfunction.
Yeah.
With,
I think this is this is coming to that point that we are having more fear in that situation, being in this kind of, we feeling this pressure to be better at work, with family, being even more organized. Or this now is everything is changing so fast, and the only maybe an inner path can give maybe a little bit resilience, but still everything is too fast for us to digest. And therefore, it sometimes happens from the trauma path, what we have heard today as well, that we are dissociated. So we are next to ourselves. The embodiment is the only way that we are here, presence. That we are digesting every situation that we have and integrating it is our real being. Also letting go and not identification of that situation. I think this is very important to take this close. And this is something what we have to do in a daily praxis. And there, a high medical perspective doesn't really matter if it's Ayurveda or if it's also the archaic medicine, maybe in the European field. I think from a feeling, but I don't know it in the detail because I have not studied the other so in detail, that in a traditional Tibetan medicine holistic perspective, the integration of the spiritual part is higher, has a bigger place. And this can be seen because of how we already describe the elements in Tibetan medicine. There are 5 elements and not 4. It's like fire, water, earth, air, and space. It's the space element. The space element also, if you get into mystics, everything what we thought, what Remy was talking about is developing the inner space. And this is the subtle body, maybe, if you talk about it in Tibetan medical terminology. And this would be the energetical field. Also, if you would do the Danish, then it would mostly develop the subtle body, and mostly it will. And I think the biggest important thing is not only to fascinate about emptiness, therefore the last sentence is also important, it's about to integrate with love, otherwise we get into emptiness and we are not connected in anyhow. It could be like nihilism. It could be like, I'm so empty and so, Österreichisch würden sagen, so wurscht. Everything is so empty. And I think if we get in really like transformative is a big item. Yeah, very good. Path, it would mean that we get bigger, or maybe like that we are opening that we are creating, that we have maybe more and more connection to the subtle body. Yes, but the most important is the heart chakra. That the heart, the bodhicitta would be now the word in the Tibetan medicine, but it would only mean enlightening spirit somehow, but also in the sensation of being in the equanimity. I'm you are me, like this kind of space element would be also the two emotions, real joy and power.
I lost it too.
Grief. Grief?
Sadness?
Sadness. Yeah. Like joy and sadness.
No.
Yes. Are the two emotions in the space element which are, and both are also necessary. The sadness maybe gives you a ground, a deepness as well, but it's good to digest, so also to let it go. So, and I think the heart is also the earth element. So we are grounded in ourselves, we are grounded in our heart. We are not lost. And this would mean we are autonomic being. Shamanism is very much putting the people back to their self. Sometimes it's like dissociation for the people, but okay. Sometimes the love could be a little bit more. Yeah. It depends on the emotional practice of the person, but it can be sometimes very, very confronting. But it only would mean that you know that you have your path, that you get to know from someone who is not so sensitive. No, that was a joke. But from you have to be able to handle it sometimes. It's very confronting, maybe, could be. That, but it means that you can carry your path. It is also trusting you. And this is in the existential analytic way, when we integrate now the school medicine perspective or Viktor Frankl. The first dimension of being is that we da sein dürfen, that we are allowed to be there, so that we have space. This is the first need. There are four layers, but somehow everything is getting the same. In the tantric praxis with this mudra, it would be against fear, and that I'm supported integrating the spiritual practice. I'm supported also by Dakinis and whoever. Maybe I can also integrate Jesus because I'm in Italy. Okay, no, like I don't feel it narrow-minded. With all the spiritual teacher, what I have had also a little bit listening. It was mostly this. I only listen with. I like to listen because it calms my mind and then I can sleep. No, this I would not say to them, but no, who are really open-minded is for me very important. Some are very in the traditional, maybe traditional presentation. From the outside, but from the inside, very open. One is maybe more in the compassion, more is maybe giving a very interesting, detailed knowledge about maybe how the rules would be, but also in the open mind compassion. And so I think these different kind of routes to here, for me, it happened, I don't really know why, but it felt very early on my feet that I was getting in touch with the Tibetan medicine part. And I just realized that this integration of the space element is very fitting for me. Because it has this philosophical part and also this, it really has this possibility to connect and to get rooted from sky to earth. And from now getting a little bit back to the subtle body, for me, my questions would be, I have been looking on Monday a little bit, how many research is done on subtle body. There is research done. Also like in the energetic field, like in the biophotonen part.
Resonanzanalyse.
Not resonance, like biophotonen measurement.
Okay.
So, and there are some good. The one I remembered that I have read or just an overview, but I think just in the last 2, 3, 4, 5 years, I realized that there are much more research is done. Mostly this research is communicated under people who are working with trauma therapy or maybe embodied philosophy or who are in the very into mystic field and open-minded, and also subtle body is not only I think it's not only in the Tibetan medical system. It would be maybe for me as an understanding, it would be this knowledge which is maybe 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 years old, which the shamanic perspective would be, okay, there is one going in trance and is healing with music. The first music therapist is a shaman. And actually, the tantric way of Tibetan medical field is also integrating the Burn shamanism. And there's a lot of bells and also kind of drums, and so opening the space and being grounded in love would you enable, as this kind of knowledge would teach, to heal you and others. It would not only be a little bit bell, it would be healing. So for me, being very much into music, I realized when I was playing last year the Alpen Symphony with the orchestra, and having which is a really big piece for French horn, and I felt maybe it was because of this not too less work and being too much in listening to get calm or having good sleep. I was so much into this music, and I really had to focus on my chair. But it was so much experience, sensation, openness, and also because of the situation that almost 2 years so much music was missing.
Mm.
And then it was a combination project between the Harris Music Corps Germany, half part, and the other half the medical doctors. So the other stiff and we floated, but also stiff. Not so stiff. The not so stiff part of the medical doctors. And in just 3 hours, you can't imagine that. And we were just maybe 4 days we were working together, and then we had the big concert. And in the first day, you would never thought that it will work out. But just in 2 or 3 hours, we were a team. And really not the people who would normally get along, maybe. But this really looking so much forward to playing music, because also it was so much lacking, also this kind of experience from that. And then so much, heartily welcome from the audience. For me, it was such an opening up feeling situation. So I think art can have this possibility in expression, and there also it was in the devotion of I don't need to be the first French horn and the strongest. It was maybe that we have the best performance with each other. I mean, it's a little bit idealistic, but maybe it was also that we can manage, because that's a constellation. It is a big piece, and hopefully we can manage in just such a short time, and then being somehow proud in such a situation. But I think music can be the chance to taste this I think this was very nurturing and very healing, and it was so much connecting each other, and so many people were not knowing each other, but we were in overflow of joy and being in this present, with this presence of music, which was still, also there was silence, it was still in our inner flow. And I think when we can develop more acceptance in our Western theoretical thinking, analytical mind, and respect to the holistic fields, where there's a really deep knowledge about these energetic areas, and maybe also self-developing possibilities, and also being more, getting more healthy, and even getting maybe also a taste of wisdom, what Remy was telling, a kind of a sensation possibility, which is maybe not because I want to make a kind of business out of it, just being in this devotion of getting in touch with my inner self. And I think there is also also the earth, where we can get grounded in this kind of very hysterical outside. And it's all the outside in the West, but not only Western, there's also other problems, other areas, but just a little bit putting it on the point. I read one book, which was just the last few pages, which was written 20 years ago from one who was studying theology, philosophy, and psychotherapy, and he was having had already 20 years of practice in Vienna. And he was saying to that time, 20 years ago, it was like a kind of borderline syndrome title. I will remember the name. And he was just writing in the back, if the human being 20 years ago will not be able also to verzicht,
abstinence.
to be abstinent or to reduce, and only get in this idea of neurosis of progress, then it will be the narcissistic hysterical accentuum, which you can see also in borderline, who is very less grounded in their self. And this could be a really big problem in the society, and it could really, until there is, it will also mean that we have lost the inner self, because we are not able to reduce. He was having this idea because of working with borderline syndrome patient over 20 years and having studied theology, philosophy, and psychotherapy at that time. And I think what is very much needed that we get to know that that we take it serious, that we have responsibility for ourselves, that it's there, and if it's possible, we even can take a bit more responsibility. And if we really want to take this serious, and if we also then we want to be that hero Rim was talking about, that we can take more responsibility to make greater good for others and for yourself. But to be able, enabling you and the others, the most possible way would be, maybe, this is maybe a little bit my conclusion to that, could be being on the search path since 22 years somehow, that the subtle body perspective, but it doesn't mean, this is just a word. Someone who is caring for the animals and the sheep, on a small hut in Tyrol, for example, and who is being so much grounded in his heart and doing some breathing work just in the morning because he's doing that intuitively. He don't need academic and he don't need knowledge. He has the knowledge. So it does not mean that we need to learn. It could be that sometimes we need less, but the respect and the integration of this deep knowledge and maybe getting also the possibility to deepen it and to integrate it, I think it would be a really big chance. And then the technology can be used wisely. We can maybe really reduce a lot. This is my feeling. Because a lot of technology is needed also to treat the fear. It's treatment of fear.
Mm.
And the thing is, there's a misunderstanding. The people think we can do everything in medicine, or I think it's not a joke. This is maybe a wise thought under medical doctors, not thought, yeah, sentence. And being 10 years in palliative care as well, we are all palliative. That's sure. We will die. So, I mean, this is a kind of humoristic, but really true thing. Yeah? I mean, it was like just we are all palliative.
True.
I just don't know when. Is it really needed? I don't know that. This is really interesting. Being trained in a lot of things, I even more neglect maybe the rules. I neglect them. I forgot. Sometimes I forget them really. This is really interesting. It's like dissociation. Yeah? Sometimes I don't want to know it anymore. No, but I think the acceptance of death could give us a really taste of living, and living to try to get into purpose, but not under pressure. Everyone has a different possibility, situation, and circumstances. It's not about this self-development, I need 15 pages of CV thing, because this is egoism. And egoism is, in the Tibetan medical point of view, or in other as well, is fire energy, and it's in the space element, the not devotional side. It's not compassion, it's the egocentric, and then it is aggression, and the aggression could turn to inflammation. So I think the egoless is very, very important. But still, we are in our hemisphere and in our surroundings, so maybe we need good peer groups to care for each other, that we are able to also nurture us, that we are not losing ourselves.
Sandra, thank you so much. It's not on the end, but I think there are so many points where we can connect with, but I have too much points to I look if there are questions.
No.
If not, I'm okay.
Did I just on that before asking questions?
Okay. Then I Inke wants a sign because I'm just diving into all the things you have spoken about. One moment to orientation and to reinforce, to let it go and to live with this moment. And it's interesting because part of the job we do with the design studio is orientation system. It's and we did research about how do we orient, and one of the points of analyze, we did really transdisciplinary with criminologue and with psychologue and neuroscientist and all sides, even with the priest, to ask what is orientation and what is disorientation. And for the one is faith, for the other is empirics, and for the next, everyone has a different element to the orientation. And what we said, and I think this is what you have done all the years, is to reinforce self-orientation. And it's
This is the inner word, the inner science.
And to have this, to get reconnected to your intuition. And what are the elements? And this is the design question, was what are the elements which, and you spoke about a space in which people feel whole, so that they are not dominated by fear, but they can have this little moment of breeze, that they can come back to the body, back to the embodiment, and to find your orientation in the space. And this is true for physical orientation, but also for mental orientation, where this little moment when you allow yourself to come back. And it's interesting because in panic situation you have no images anymore. You're running in all sides, but you don't have, and it's exactly this kind of shortly slowing down, or this moment of reduction and coming home, which gives you the chance to do the next step. And I found a lot of aspects about this inner and the outer space, which you touched, which are very, I think, very close to our reflections about giving form. I don't know if you want directly say, you want, no? So I let you and then I take.
I must say, I like also this dimension to say we are all palliative, because when I connect now with Vera, to be the fact of disorientation, orientation is the perception of the disorientation and the orientation, and I think we can also bring positive element at the disorientation, and then the effective disorientation can be also go over. So all this element of what's the reality of problems and of effective and what's the way we go on it. This double element, I think you say it perfectly, and I like this little décalage. But if you to repair one, you need to work on the other. So this mirror effect, and I think it's very important for many things. We work a little just to make the illustration of what Vera says, to say what's probably the most dramatic situation of disorientation in a clinic is that the clinic looked like a clinic.
Yes.
Right.
I mean, I have seen integrative medicine, like in India, when can be very how do you say, more pragmatic, let's put it like that. But still, most of them, I think all of them who study Ayurveda also have like 2 years Western medicine. And it's very good to have this dialogue possibility. I have talked with one, he was just next to Dharamsala, having close by the waterfall. He had a small praxis, and it was very funny because at that time I was working in Berlin and he was showing me from Charité. It's interesting, it's from my side. So it was just really skurril, it was strange. But we could really talk in a very nicely way, and this easygoing atmosphere, being more in nature. And still, I really respect as well, because I get to know some people there who have lost their just relatives, and said, how can you be interested in that medicine? I'm really angry. He should not have treatment like for 3 months or 4 months, because if he would have just made one ultrasound, he would have been healed. And this situation makes it clear. The biggest thing is not which is better. The only question what we have to devise is when do we do what? So it's so good that we have these possibilities of diagnostic. It's so good that we have this possibility of treatment. But we have to treat totally. We have a really, really big high development of fear, which is getting more. We have a hysterical development, and it's emotionally driven by our journalism. So it's hysterically with putting fire onto it, or oil in the fire, or something like that.
Social media do it or
Also. And so I think this picture of orientation, which would mean in Tibetan medical terms and in other mystical fields as well, also in Christianity and the Darwish, would be grounded in the heart. This is orientation. And so it's the earth element, heart. And if it's grounded in the heart, our mind, actually the moon and the sun is in the heart. And enlightened mind would be like body, mind, speech. So here from the heart is the speech, mind is our to share, and body. But just with a good body, we are able to have an enlightened mind, or have a wisdom which is seeing clear. And this seeing clear means sight. So we can be for each other a mirror for development. But otherwise, we are just a possibility of manipulation.
Because the article I wrote in this book about desorientation was about torture. And it was researched about the science of torture, which was developed in the States after the Second World War. And what was interesting in the documents I found, which actually I could find, the CIA documents I could find in the internet, top secret, but you still, if you start to search, you can find it. This is interesting. But what I found out was that, maybe I'm not the first one, but it were not written officially, that the beginning of the communication science in the States has the same roots like the military research about torture and torture as practice, because the States exported this knowledge in other countries. So we have in Afghanistan, we have all these training camps for torturing and to torturing in the sense of how better manipulating people. I'm not joking that the same information and results are the same root of the two shares of communication and manipulation has the same root, and which means that finally all which goes to branding, marketing, communication theory comes from this knowledge about how I can. The only thing is that this logic of torturing is a kind of very violent manipulation of the body, and it's not. So we have a chance because it's really a manipulation that could create an atmosphere of fear, in which you are searching for external factors which so you are and Martin Skrief spoke about this fragile moment in which you start to you can in one hand have impact yourself, but it's also the moment when all others could have access to you. So it's a training to dissociate and associate at the same time. And we have the chance to refine the autonomy from this culture of manipulation. But in the moment, by over-occupying us, all these technical instruments, and we know this is getting more and more, we feed the machines. If you book a room here, you have to have 5 codes and reassurance and your mobile and another technical instrument for just before you came to the hotel and you said, I'm here and open the room, please.
Yeah.
And
you got a key.
And how, what time, what space in your mind? This is occupation, but it's stressful occupation. And in this time, you can't be reconnected to your body, and this kind of communication is augmented. All the communication also Renee spoke about with yourself to embody again is reduced and reduced and reduced. And I think this is a very important thing, how to find ways to disconnect and to use this moment of fragility to come back to you and not to go to this.
Yeah, from the neurobiological point of view, what we already know since quite a long time, I mean, to be very early in this kind of fields, I mean, me, at least, I grew up without mobile phone. It means that it's big attachment in terms of spiritual speech and in medical terms, it's addiction. And it's really a neurobiological deformation of dopaminergic receptor synapse, and it's really like drinking alcohol and you're just 15. And just a study 2 months ago in NZZ, a fifth of the youth in the US is suicidal. 20% is suicidal in a collective where you have everything what you need to survive. And that means the common sense is 5 hours a day, approximately, it means one a little bit more and then a little bit less, are with somehow in the social media. This is all the time where they already need to make a kind of trademark of themselves or something being outgoing, or I mean, no, in that time when I grew up, we were just in the outside, and there was maybe an appointment, but you could rely on each other, and that's it.
I have a question. In the way of non sapere, what are for you in the moment questions you try to find out and you go on?
For me, the biggest questions are, I think I could have tasted a lot of knowledge. I mean, I've done also some work for that, or a lot of work, but I think there's really like a big ocean, which is just taste starting and maybe even bigger possibilities. How would it be possible? And I realized also knowing how much overload I experienced and how much misuse I experienced also in the kind of working fields, also in medicine, how much supportive this is, how much, and not only for me, also realizing how much support it could be for someone in need. And maybe my question is, I just taste on the surface. knowing that I tasted maybe much deeper than a lot of people, but compared to some, some practitioners say after 40 years you're getting into the state of where you can go more out or something. And then I was, oh good, then I don't feel the pressure anymore because I'm not so good in the outgoing. But my questions are, how would it be possible, we are overloaded, like in a narcissistic relationship, almost like in narcissistic relationship with an empath, for example, you could say the introduction, that the other one is so much manipulated that he's not really almost needing 2, 3, 4 years to have any kind, get a little bit more in this feeling of self-connection, self-esteem, and really having a lot of I'm feeling unsure. And I have the feeling that in a society term, for me, so much possibility this is that I have Google Earth, Google Maps, and can orientate myself very fast. But this overload and really so much changes every month, something else is coming, and if my emails would not work, wow, what would happen? You know, if my phone would go into the limit, oh my dear, almost dying, and we see it. The people jump after their phones. And some people say, oh, I want to die. They really say that. So it feels like this is a kind of introduction. And how can we detach? I mean, if there's someone not so fanatic, like I know someone, and so how could it be that wisdom also the people want to go for, or that authentic being is nice, or is getting also a trait, or how could it be interesting? I think the people are more on this track right now. I feel it. These are the questions. How maybe my question is, could be the knowledge of subject body, and not only that, and also art in medicine, like also medicine as art. How can we recreate it? Do we need to? I'm always a harmonistic, very diplomatic and harmony liking person, and so I question. A lot of people are doing so much good work with really, really good heart. And some are on the heart line of medicine, and this is really great and needed as well. But how can we integrate with acceptance and with and also this deep knowledge, if we really get into that, then it would mean that I do with, like Sanskrit, I do with a thought, as a thinking, and I'm really into it, and I'm in the space, and I'm grounded in my heart, I do healing. So how we could spread? This is this would be beautiful.
No, I think what is interesting is it's about knowledge, experience, and practicing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think because all this knowledge which is not integrated can isolate you also very much. And I think a lot of doctors, but it's in all disciplines, really lonely. And the only thing is, as you said, the fear is to stabilize. This is official, proved knowledge, to stabilize when in this transformation process, you can't control all processes. You give an input, but you're not. Healing is a collective process,
Yeah.
And it's an exchange, and sometimes it maybe makes also sense, as again Remise said, our footprints can. Is the idea that the footprint is heavy and we stay for a long time, or maybe it makes also sense to stay just for a certain moment and have had this role. And this is not giving up, but it's kind of devotion, but it's not this devotion like this, but it's also a fascination of this circularity of all these things. And I think it's I'm very fascinated by this incredible energy and calm which can come when you reconnect to this. I wanted, it's interesting because we have, I don't know how to make a bridge, but I will speak about it. We have colleagues who founded in the psychiatric clinics of Paris. They founded a design office to say searching together with neuroscientists, which are on the same place, and with psychiatric doctors, to search on different topics, to reflect about what can creation and arts have interest. It's not art therapy. It has another function. This idea, if by creating which kind of atmosphere you can help a disoriented, so ill person to find again reorientation. Either the body finds it, but it's the body and the mind who has to find the reorientation. And the last time they worked on coma situations, but the last time they worked on isolation cell, which is still used with people in psychotic situation. They come into an isolation room, and the crazy thing is that the tradition of these isolation rooms is that it's without information. It's calming the senses, but calming the senses by an aseptic situation. And if we all know fear situation, you need a reduction because you have too much input. But if somebody would put you in a room where you have no information anymore, it's a prolongation of the torture.
Yeah.
Because and they started to search and to speak with people what they need in the room. And it's very individual. And they started to create kind of toolboxes, what you bring individually, that people can have the chance to say, I need this music. The other, if you put music on top, they completely panic. And the other thing, I need a special light. Or I need, and it's interesting that with some elements, and this is a design question also, you can create atmospheres which can have this aspect that you can reconnect and you can find this way to this inner space. And it's an interesting research about this elements in the design question, these elements which can affirm and can stabilize your mind and your mood. But I hear that you are maybe not.
No, it's we know it's something who's sensible because the situation is sensible, and I think it's not only because you take music that you bring this situation not so hard. So it's
not decoration which
I think
changes.
we have to go deeper, and they know it. They know it absolutely. How can we go from a situation of somebody other say you have to go there to a situation I like to go there? This is absolutely the center of this element, and I think they are in the moment not on this point, not because they not will use it, but the dialogue also is not so easy. No, I think it's a good example of also the relativity, and what I must say, why I'm fascinated about all this is the relativization of elements who are hardcore. But from time to time, I see the same hardcore in the other element as in the other side. And how can we, in the way that you say, how can we go out of this hardcore and bring in first the questioning and not the answer?
Just sometimes we would say, in comparison, like for integrative medicine, sometimes I did, when I also talked about it, to compare the systems, then hard skills, soft skills. Yeah? And hard skills is also very needed. Sometimes the people have 1 hour talk and no orientation. Sometimes they really love to be with an orthopedic and they have the feeling, I want to do